thumbs up in the back. Great. Awesome. Welcome everybody to our Oklahoma Women in Aviation and Aerospace Day. We're excited to get started on the panel today. I'm Captain SueAnn Alexander. I'm going to be the moderator. I'm a pilot for Delta Airlines. I'm a captain in the A220. I'm also a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves. I spent most of my career flying the C-17 Globemaster, big 4-engine cargo airplane. Seen a lot of movies, Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious, Captain Marvel, my favorite. So that's the way I like to describe that. We're going to go ahead and get started because we have some awesome panelists today, industry leaders, and I want you to hear all that they have to say. So we're going to start with introductions, and we want people to keep filing in so everybody gets to hear us today. All right, so our panelists we'll get started with today. Rebecca Pettenski, Project Manager, Integrated Mission Systems from L3Harris. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Pettenski from L3Harris. I am from New York originally. I have my bachelor's degree in optical engineering. I moved here about 7 years ago to work for L3Harris as a center platform operator in the back of one of our G2Bs. And I'm recently a project manager, and I'm also working on my master's degree online at CU Boulder for engineering management. And gosh, I am so excited to be here today and talking more about it.
Thanks. Well, Rebecca, before you go, so tell us a little bit more about what you did when you flew in the back of the planes.
So as a center platform operator, we were working with optical systems that are internal to the aircraft, but as well we have 2 aircraft with external sensors. So we support the DoD and go out and support Missile Defense Agency tests, and we collect data on those tests and provide it back to the Missile Defense Agency, and it gets fed back into our systems.
Yeah,
so
cool.
We would travel all around California, Alaska, Hawaii a lot, and you know, when I found that job posting online, I said, holy cow, that's my dream job. I get to travel all around the world and as well as fly on so many different aircrafts. I didn't get a lot of opportunities to travel when I was younger, so that was definitely something I really wanted in the job, and that was definitely provided to me here in Oklahoma.
Great, thank you. Next we have Kathryn Plunkett, Production Supervisor, Engine and APU from American Airlines.
Good morning, my name is Kathryn Plunkett. I entered the aviation sector back in 2004, working for Boeing as a manufacturing engineer. We were the first class of engineers they brought out after 9/11, and I was brought on to help work the new 787 that turned into then working 747-8s and the Gulfstream G650s that you see many celebrities flying around on today. I've been with American Airlines now for 10 years. I was a structures and power plant engineer, and in the past 6 months I've transitioned to production side, where I help lead a team of approximately 100 AMTs on testing and overhauling our engine.
Thank you. Next we have Lieutenant Colonel Jaclyn McCormick, Director of Operations, 963rd Airborne Air Control Squadron. Bruiser?
Like she said, I'm the Director of Operations down at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City for the 963rd world famous Blue Knights. Many of them here. I've been in the Air Force almost 18 years now. I joined in 2005. Originally got my degree in a Master's in Business Administration, actually, at the University of South Dakota. I'm actually an air battle manager on the back of the E3 AWACS, Airborne Warning and Control System. So I'm not an air traffic controller. It's a little bit different. I'm actually better at bringing the good guys to find the bad guys and making them shoot them down. It's basically the gist of what I do, to put it in layman's terms. But it's been a fantastic career, and I've loved all the changes that I've seen, and especially in the last couple of years. So.
Great, thank you so much. Next we have Dr. Brenda Rolls, CEO of Frontier Electronic Systems. Brenda?
Hi, good morning. Really happy to be here. So Frontier Electronic Systems is a small business in Stillwater. We're an engineering and manufacturing company, and we build electronic hardware for military, defense platforms, and for space applications. My background, actually I'm the second generation of the family that founded the company. My parents wanted to see a place in Oklahoma where graduates from OSU or OU could stay in Oklahoma and have good, challenging, rewarding careers. And so we build some really cool stuff. If you've seen the Artemis launch that happened a couple of weeks ago and the Orion spacecraft that's circling the moon, we have hardware that was from the top of the rocket to the bottom and on the Orion spacecraft. So we do some really cool things. My background, I got an undergraduate degree in business and then a doctorate in clinical psychology. And while the psychology may not seem like it fits, Sigmund Freud said to have a healthy person, they know how to work and they know how to love. So the love part people have to do on their own, but the work part we try to really find good fits, good rewarding careers.
Thank you. Next, Colonel Robin Cavanaugh, Vice Commander, 138th Fighter Wing here in Tulsa.
Good morning, good morning. So she said Colonel Robin Cavanaugh. I graduated from Owasso, so I've been local to this area. That's a great story about the Guard, is you typically grow up in the same communities that you serve in eventually. So I've been with the unit for about 33 and a half years, climbing my way up to the position that I'm currently in. The 138 Fighter Wing, most people don't know that we exist. They think we're the helicopters off of 169. We are not. We actually share the runway with Tulsa International Airport. We fly the F-16 Falcons, and we have about 1,200 members that are assigned to our wing. I myself have a master's degree in military education, deployed numerous times all over, mostly the CENTCOM theater, and raised our family right here in the local Tulsa area.
Great, thanks. Next we have another Robin, Robin Hadfield, President of the 99s, joining us all the way from Canada. Thank you.
So I think I'm the grand dame here. My flying goes back into 1979. I was one of those kids that used to look up and watch airplanes fly overhead. And I used to drive by this little airport every day, and I stopped in. I believe it was $5 for an intro flight. That's how long ago it was. And I was hooked and got involved in aerobatics before I even had my private license, and was competing in that. My husband and I, for 6 years, ran the National Aerobatic Championships. We've had 8 pilots within our family, 3 generations of airlines. Other than myself, I'm not airlines. My flying has always been just for fun. And 1.5 years I was commander on the space station. Other than that, they've all been airlines. And it's now, I think I've got 16 different airplane types that I've flown. And not much else to say. I'm the president of the 99s. It's the 45th president, first time outside of the United States.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And we'll start with questions. So what you're seeing on the screen is how we're going to guide our discussion today. The FAA commissioned the Women in Aviation Advisory Board to take a deep dive into the struggles to get women into the aviation and aerospace industries. So we probably all know in here, in almost every career field that is about aviation, less than 20% of the career field are women. And obviously a diverse career field is a great career field. And so this is intended to figure out how to get women into careers and then retain them into careers and then get them into leadership positions. So this is the flight plan for success. So I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if you'd like to go ahead and take out your phone and snap that QR code, this will give you the link to the full report. It's really long and in depth, and if you're a business leader, it gives you some great ways to retain that talent. And if you're a young person, it gives you a great way to try to get into the careers. So again, go ahead and snap that. If you zoom in, I find if you zoomed in from the back row, it'll actually work. So, and we're going to just use this as a little bit of a guide for our discussion. And to start with, we're going to start with Robin. And Robin, getting girls exposed to aviation at a young age has been shown to get them into the career fields later on. So can you tell us what the 99s does, and then about any outreach programs?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
The 99s, first, it needs a little bit of back history, because we go back to 1929 when it was the first time they were going to let women pilots actually go in the men's air race. And they felt that a 300 horsepower aircraft was too powerful for them. They wanted them to take mechanics, they wanted other pilots, and they refused all of it. But there was 20 women that over a 9-day race they faced sabotage. they faced the male pilots going up and trying to cut them off and create air accidents. And at the end of the race, they got together and said, this is crazy, we need to get together for mutual support to promote aviation to women. There was, at that time, 117 licensed female pilots in the country, which is about 1% of all of those pilots. They were faced with not having uniforms that fit women. They were holding world records in altitude, speed, and endurance. And they wanted to just be able to get together for camaraderie and for mutual support and a place to collect and maintain records for female pilots. And
Rebecca,
that pretty much
can you
stands
guys hear in the
together.
back? Is it loud enough? Okay. Yeah, if you can maybe hold it a little closer.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Okay.
So today we do have 2 museums with the largest collection of information on women pilots throughout the country. We're now international around the world with 7,000 members. We are just pilots. They can include maybe student pilots, anybody else who's not a pilot is a friend of the Airlines. We still get together. We face the same things that we did back in 1929, that women still are being intimidated. We have reached 6%. It's growing very slowly at 1%. We do a lot of outreach education. It's really important getting kids up in airplanes. It's having them around airports. And it's about seeing other women. That when you go in an airport or onto a base and they see you in uniform, or they see them in an airline uniform, and little girls actually stop in airports and they point and they go, look, if you can see it, you can become it. If you don't see it, it never even crosses your mind. It's about educating kids when they're young. It's getting teenagers to know what they have to take at school, and these careers are even available for them. Not just flying, but in any aviation career. It's about getting out and hitting those kids. The stats, when you read it from that report, it's a little bit misleading because it shows the student pilots that are also in the FAA numbers. And the student pilot licenses never expire. So you have a cumulative effect of saying how many pilots are actually there. But if you remove them, women go from 9% back down to 6%. So we still have a long way to go. And these type of programs make a huge difference. Oklahoma is leading the country, and it's the second largest driving factor in the state is aviation and aerospace.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that aviation and aerospace is the second leading industry in Oklahoma behind oil and gas. So that's really amazing. Just to raise your hand how many students we have in the audience. Fantastic. So we're looking forward to questions at the end. So make sure as we're going through the speakers that you're thinking of some things, or if you're like, hey, I'd really like a little bit more info on that, you'll have an opportunity to get questions at the end. Robin, thank you so much. And next, Colonel Cavanaugh, you had a little bit of an unusual path into aviation to the industry. You can tell us about that.
Yes, so as I mentioned, previously I graduated from Owasso High School, so at 17 years old, I'm a senior in high school, and I have no idea how I'm going to go to college, which is about 9 months away from this point in time. And I looked at the Guard and explored some options, and originally joined the Air National Guard with the hopes of just utilizing the Montgomery GI Bill to assist with paying my way through college. So I did, and then I began to work full-time at the base, and I went to school at night. It took me 5 years to get my associates, 5 years to get my bachelor's, and probably another 10 to get my master's. But that path led me to a career that I now sit in today, 33 and a half years later. And I've had the opportunity of serving as an enlisted member in the Air National Guards. I did about 6 years enlisted before I transitioned to a officer role, a little bit more of a leadership role. I served in a couple of different avenues there. The same unit, the 138 Fighter Wing, I've been there my entire career. Went over to maintenance, was a maintenance officer for a period of time, and then came back and did staff level work for 10 years, and then I began my squadron and command rotation And I did squadron command in a logistics squadron, and then and I was in charge of an engineering and installation squadron, which does communications infrastructure. And there I sat in my engineering installation squadron command and was approached about applying to be the vice wing commander. For our unit, we fly the F-16s, as I've mentioned before. I am not a rated pilot, so it's very uncommon that we have a vice wing commander that is not a rated pilot. Furthermore, our wing had never had a female vice wing commander. So that's not a typical path. Typically, you go from squadron command up to group command, where you then earn the next rank, and then you could only hope and dream of making it into the vice, especially if you're a non-rated, you cannot be the wing commander. So there I sat in my squadron command and living my best life, and that is actually the best job in the Air Force, by the way, squadron command. It is absolutely the best job in the Air Force. It doesn't get better than that, trust me. And there I sit, and I'm approached, and I think I really don't have a chance. I'm a lieutenant colonel. I have everything I need, and I have a COE in place to put on the next rank, but I never in a million years think this is going to happen. But I'm just so grateful for where I am, and I interviewed, and the next thing you know, I get a phone call that I'm it. And a little bit of shock, because I have the philosophy that kind of be present and live where you are and enjoy it, and if you're not enjoying your job that you're doing, don't chase a goal or a dream just because it's on the checklist. So just try to stick with what makes you happy in life, and sometimes that takes you on a very different journey than you ever saw yourself going down. But so grateful to be in the position that I'm in, and to be able to help serve and to serve the members of the 138 Fire Wing.
Thank you. And I got a follow-up for you, which is, so you got into the Guard because you didn't see a path to college and you wanted to take advantage of the tuition assistance opportunities. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about the opportunities for higher education and other certifications in the military?
Yes, absolutely. So since I joined the Oklahoma National Guard as a whole, Army and Air, has really taken great strides to increase education opportunities for the guardsmen in the state of Oklahoma. We're one of a few states across the nation that offer state-sponsored tuition. So if you're a member of the National Guard, Army or Air, you can go to any state-sponsored university, OSU, OU, for free. They will pay your tuition. They've since increased their legislation, and now they will also cover fees. Before they didn't cover fees, but now they do. So that is on top of your Montgomery GI Bill that you'll get. So some of these airmen at one point used to joke about they probably made more money than I did coming to drill. Between their GI Bill, their education benefits, their bonuses, things like that. Additionally, some of our career fields, they go out and get certifications that can translate into the civilian workforce. So for the National Guard, most of the members there, at least 70%, have civilian employers in the local community. So the military and the Air National Guard can send them to training opportunities. They can get certifications, whether that be technology and comm certifications, electricians, things along those lines. And so they're very marketable to civilian employers just because of their training that they receive in the military, but specifically for this case scenario as a citizen soldier and having a civilian employer in the local area.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks so much. All right, next over to Brenda. Can you tell us a little bit more? Frontier does some really amazing work you were telling us about. Tell us a little bit more about it, and also what career opportunities are available. Specifically, if you can touch on degreed and non-degreed career opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. So we build anything, we have the capability to design electronics, to develop, to create prototypes, and then to go into manufacturing. Sometimes we build our designs, and sometimes we build designs that our customers bring to us. Most of our customers are the large prime contractors like Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, Honeywell, so some of the big contractors, and then we work directly with the U.S. Navy on some systems. So the work we do, we build anything from circuit card level products. For instance, we have a circuit card that goes into the guidance head of a missile or the Missile Defense Agency, to electronic boxes that might be like avionics test equipment or power control equipment or a cockpit display, to more like racks of equipment and system level things. For instance, we build a simulation system for the Global Hawk and Triton unmanned aerial aircraft. And so what our equipment does is it tests the flight computers. So these aircraft fly by a program. They don't have somebody flying them, they're flown from a lab. And so our systems allow them to test out the computers to make sure that the aircraft will fly their mission, and they can insert faults, they can try to challenge it to what happens if there's an unforeseen event, and then can the aircraft recover and still complete its mission. So we do kind of a lot of different types of things. Jobs, okay, so we have a wide range. One of the things about our company that I love is that we could not do any of what we do if we only had one or two disciplines of people. It takes a team, and it takes a very competent, committed, reliable, excellent team to do what we do. So we have electronic assemblers, and amazingly, you might find people who really like to work with their hands. We have a lot of women who are our best electronic assemblers because they have good dexterity, they are very precise, they like creating things and rolling things up into bigger systems, and so that is one of the positions that's very pivotal for our work. We have test technicians who are taking our electronics and running it through different types of tests to make sure that our products perform the way they need to. We have a range of engineers. We have manufacturing engineers that work on how we're going to actually build products. We have some automated equipment, and we do some things manually. We build a lot of different types of products, so we're not just one automated system, but so there's a lot of intervention that has to happen because of the wide variety of products we build. We have electrical engineers, we have mechanical engineers, we have software engineers, we have accountants, we have contract managers, we have quality assurance people. So amongst that range of people, the degree positions, typically our engineering positions, require a 4-year degree. Most of our other positions, so for instance, if you're an electronics technician or a manufacturing technician or an assembler, there will be some level of post-high school training, some of which we do, because we're more interested in getting people who have the potential and have the interest in doing what we do, and then we're willing to make the investment to train them. Some of our accounting positions require degrees, but so we have anywhere from high school graduates to people with 2-year degrees coming through one of the career tech systems, to people with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and a couple of doctoral level positions.
Fantastic, thanks. And I just want to emphasize there too that, so in aviation and aerospace, there is the full range. There are non-degree opportunities or degree opportunities. And another thing, if you haven't picked up on it, typically people think that you have to have a STEM background, science, technology, engineering, math. People have this perception that if you aren't into STEM, if you didn't do advanced math and sciences in high school, that there's no place for you in aviation. So I'm just curious, who on the panel does not have the typical STEM background, does not have the degree? So there you have it. We have our STEM side, and then we have our non-STEM side. So there is something really in aviation and aerospace for everybody, and I wanted to point that out. And one of the reasons why I asked Brenda to talk about that is to tell you all about the opportunities that are available in aerospace and aviation. So you know, hey, that's really cool. I'm actually really good with my hands and crafty. There are careers out there for me, and exposing you. And so once we get you into aviation, now we've got to retain you. Brenda, sticking with you for a minute, you have some really good policies on retaining that mid-level talent. Can you tell us about them, how you've gotten creative to retain that talent?
Yes, so we're in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have a limited pool from which to pull people who work for us. And when we get people, the investment that they make in Frontier and we make in them is one that we don't want to lose. And so we have learned that it is mutually beneficial for us to be flexible. So for instance, we've had some instances of women who are going to have babies, or we actually had a married couple who works at Frontier, and they adopted children, 2 children. And so the wife, who was a project engineer, excellent, she was planning to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, and she did for about a year. And then we were able to work an arrangement where between she and her husband, they could work flexible schedules and they could take care of their children, and we could still benefit from having both of their tremendous skill sets while they could commit to taking care of their family in the way that they wanted to. So we've learned to try to be flexible like that. And then also, we have a lot of, our positions are such that because we're a small business, we don't have like a huge progression of jobs that you move from this level to this level. So we have some of that, but what we really have is that you grow in the position you're in and you gain more and more and more responsibilities. And depending on how that position functions, we really find that flexing schedules and allowing people to do what they're good at, I believe working in your strengths is one of the most important things that we as a company can do. Is when you have someone who's working in their strengths and their passion, it takes so much less energy for them to do what they do, and they do a better job, and it energizes them. So we try to find those ways to help people work in their strengths in whatever capacity we might need to do that.
Fantastic, thank you. Bruiser, over to you now. So you've seen some really positive changes in the Air Force regarding flexibility and some family-friendly policies. Tell us about those.
Yeah, and I failed to mention it earlier, so I'm also married to a director of operations down at Chickasaw Air Force Base. We have 2 small children. We have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, so needless to say, we are very busy. However, just in the last 2 years alone, there have been so many changes to the DoD and the Air Force that just make it that much easier to be a mother and to have a family in the Air Force. It's just phenomenal. So I have notes because I'm afraid I'm going to forget some of them, and I want to highlight a few of them. One of them is just some teams that have been put together. So there's a congressional mandate that kind of enforces this women's initiative team that have just developed and changed a lot of the policies and procedures in the Air Force for making it more family friendly. And then we also have, just in the Air Force, in Air Combat Command, the SWORD Athena program as well. So one of the biggest things, I think at least, is just removing the height requirements for pilots, especially that it affected 44% of the female population. You used to have a standing height of 5 feet 4 inches to 6 feet 6 inches to be able to fly an airplane in the Air Force. That has been completely removed. So that just opens up the opportunity for that many more women to be able to fly in the Air Force and the military in general. One of my favorite ones is the changes to uniforms. Just designed and made better to fit women's statures and women's bodies better. More opportunities and more access to especially maternity uniforms. I know when I was pregnant, I mean, it was impossible to get a maternity uniform on base, and this was now 7 years ago. That has changed, gotten better. You can actually now go on base. There's a plethora of maternity uniforms to try on. Make sure you get the right size, and then as you grow, you're going to get new sizes. But I had to go online and try to beg, borrow, and steal maternity uniforms 7 years ago. It was very painful, but it's gotten so much better. Hair regulations, probably my favorite one. So if you've ever had a tight bun headache before, you understand how awesome it is to be able just to wear a ponytail in uniform. It's fantastic. So that's just one of the best ones, in my opinion. So they've made a lot of positive changes. Ponytails, there's lots of other things. I have a huge list in here if you want to talk to me more about it afterwards. Some of the other fantastic ones.
I have a specific question about your experience when you were going to school compared to now. So tell us about the school experience and then how that's improved. When you were at NIU.
Oh, when I was at NIU?
Yes.
So when I had my second child, about 4 years ago now, I went to school at the National Intelligence University in Bethesda, Maryland. When I started school, I was about 9 months pregnant. So I literally started school, a week later had a baby. Very difficult, but I communicated really well with my professors there, and they were very receptive to like my needs and my expectations and their expectations, and we were very open with what I was going to be able to do. I only had 6 weeks off at that time after having a baby. That has also changed. That is now 12 weeks off after you have a newborn. Fantastic as well. And then there's also my husband, I think at that time, only was allowed 10 days off. Not ridiculous. That has also changed. That is now moving to 3 months off for paternal leave for the fathers, especially. There's also adoption leave. If you're going to foster a child, there's leave for that. If you have a miscarriage, there's now leave for that. So I was lucky enough, though, at NIU that they had a fantastic nursing facility in there. That's another big change that the Air Force and DoD have implemented. The facilities have to have, each building has to have a place for a mother to go nurse. I didn't have that back then. I mean, back then, 7 years ago. I mean, I was sometimes in a restroom or in a closet. Like, it was not conducive to nursing, really. So now there's regulations on what needs to be provided to nursing mothers in each building. So that's just fantastic.
And these are all really recent changes.
Very
And at a time, so this NIU, the school, is really important for career development and promotion opportunities, and you weren't able to delay, right? You had to take this opportunity, and now...
Yeah, at that time I could not delay.
Right, and now is there a way to
I
delay?
believe there's a deferment opportunity now to delay after you've had a baby, yeah.
And that's really vital so that you stay on career track, right? Because we need women to stay in the leadership tracks. So that's an amazing new development as well.
Yeah, even taking a physical fitness test after you had a baby, I think I had 6 months, which was a challenge. Now you get 13 months, thankfully, because I mean, it's hard to get back into shape after carrying a child. And just childcare in general, I know a lot of the military bases have quite a long wait list, and there's different categories of it. Like, my husband and I are military to military, so we tend to be like on the top of the wait list, but the wait lists were just atrocious. So the military has really gotten better taking a look at that and improved access to childcare, whether it's on base or off base, especially even in-home childcare, whether it's a nanny or babysitters, and they're providing fee assistance for those services as well.
Those are great. Those are really great updates for the Air Force. Thanks so much for that. So these are the mid-career things that businesses can do, and these are the Air Force has made such great strides in such a short period of time to retain that mid-level talent. And then we need to get women to the leadership levels. And again, to see it to be it, right? We want women to be in the C-suites and to be future leaders. And so we need opportunities, and we need those social support structures. So Katie, if you'll tell us about the support structures at American.
Sure. So we have a more traditional mentor program. So when you would come in or you would be an intern, you're going to be matched up with a mentor. That's going to be somebody usually within your group who has several years of experience up to the lead, who's going to help you with the day-to-day as you come in, learning the job, learning how to work calls, how to take questions, where to look to answer those questions. As you move up, it then starts to be a different need. You've learned that set of skills. You might be looking at how you want to further your career. And so American has put together a more formalized, it's an application-based mentorship program, and they are trying to match you not just with somebody in your direct line of path, but usually an executive from a different area of the company so that they can work with you, provide you feedback, talk about where you want to go and maybe how you want to get to there, and then give you some ideas outside of your norm. My mentor did not come from an engineering background, but he is here today. He came to support me, and then he ended up inviting women. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. Front and center, yes. But he also invited women from our organization to be here also to help support this cause and support me. So it's wonderful.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And Rebecca, similar question, but first, Elder Harris has some really amazing resource groups. for women. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so we have specifically We3, which is women striving for empowering, encouraging, and enhancing other women. And it's a corporation-wide employee resource group, but it's also has local chapters. And so our local Tulsa chapter will host different lunch and learns, provide different opportunities to hear leaders throughout our organization, just kind of more one-on-one. Different sites also host different book clubs, host other social events outside of work. It's just a way for other women to have a support group and kind of share their perspective through working in a corporate environment. And it's been an incredible experience when you join the workforce and it is a more male-dominated field, it's really important to have some of those support groups for other women because it is a different perspective when I was deploying on missions, I was one of 3 women, I think out of ranging from 50 to 100 people that were deploying. And that's a really challenging place to be in when you're right out of college and it's your first job. So it's really important to have those types of resource groups available and that support system to be there.
And you're also, Elfrey, oops, I turned my mic off. Turn that back on.
Do you want this one?
Did it turn back on? Yes, perfect. Great. And then there's also a really great mentorship program.
Yeah, that's correct. So I was the project engineering manager for a short period of time, and they actually, as soon as you enter that career path, and it's spreading to more functions than just engineering, but you're also similar to what Katie was saying, it's an application-based process. They match you with somebody who is on the same functional path as you in your group, but that also has the same interests. And that mentorship program is a 10-week-long program. It's a formal mentorship that's actually monitored through the corporation, and you get to take credit for that mentorship, as well as there are some more informal mentorships when you're brought on. They're called peer mentors, and somebody who's in your group, somebody who knows and has been at the company for a couple of years, but also to provide you another resource outside of your manager that you can go to, ask questions, and just the mentorship program has really, I think, spread because, again, just outside of, mentoring women as well, mentorship is such a key role in finding out what you want to do and what other resources are available for you. When you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to go to that next step. And so having and being mentors is another really important aspect as you grow in your career. Try and find somebody that you can mentor as well. And I think people, if you ask somebody to be your mentor, more likely than not, they're going to say yes. So reach out for those opportunities if they're not formally there for you as well. Informal mentorship is just as powerful.
Thank you. And so that was that really vital last piece of our flight plan here, that specific sponsorship to get to those leadership positions is really vital in the future development of all these future aviators in here. So now we've heard from everybody so far, and we have this great variety. We've got some engineers, we've got project managers, we've got CEO, and so now we're going to take some questions from the audience. So over here, Michaela's got a mic, and then if anybody on this side wants to ask a question, I'll repeat it for you. So who's going to ask the first question? Who's going to be shy? All right, great. Are you loud enough to scream it out? All right, Michaela's coming with the mic. I know it's getting a little warm in here. You can fan yourself. You won't be offended. So the air I don't have control over. Is it? Oh, I probably didn't unmute it. Oh, all right. Let's try it again. There we go. I think it's working now.
Can you hear me? Here.
Yes, and let us know who you are if you would, and if you're with this school, let us know.
All right, so I'm Jade, and I'm with Oklahoma Aviation Academy.
Woo!
And I have a really, it's for all of y'all, so. He's crying. So, what was your, career, at first, during the hard times of, 1%? Yeah, if you get what I'm saying.
Like being one of the only women in a more male-dominated field?
Yeah, more how it started, or how you, well, you already said that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, so
let me repeat the question. So are you looking for the, how you got into aviation, or your experience as a new person in aviation?
The second one.
Okay, perfect.
It was really interesting, especially because I have an optical engineering degree, which you would think is kind of not close to aviation or aerospace at all. And so for me, being new into aviation, I was in awe the first time I got to walk out on the flight line. So L3 Harris is up at Tulsa International, and actually being on the airport property almost felt wrong to be on the airport property. But every day you learn so much about so many different things, and so many people were really kind and compassionate to help me learn more about the aircraft themselves, the systems that are in the aircraft. And I think one of the most exciting things for me was learning how to ride the brakes on the aircraft while they're towing it with one of the tows. So for me, it was just honestly a lot of excitement.
For me, since I started out as a manufacturing engineer, I was the only female out of 80 men out of the engineering group, along with the only female mainly on the floor with the men working the product. So it was a seat, but one of those men happened to be my uncle. He was one of the mechanics, and it was kind of that end. So I was taught a lot, taken under their wing. They definitely, as long as I was humble and willing to learn, they were willing to teach me. But I was telling her last night, I still remember one of the mechanics. I'd been there a couple of years, but he was like, "Man, you sure do know a lot about airplanes for a girl." So, but I was like, "Yeah, he thinks I do."
That's great, and thank you so much for asking the first question. That takes a lot of guts to stand up first, so thank you for that. Do we have any? What other questions do we have? We've got one down here. Michaela's right behind you.
I don't need the mic.
Okay.
I'm currently studying, I'm pretty free, I'm with Aviation. I'm currently getting my master's at Purdue University. For those of you up there that do have your master's, do you feel like, because there's not as many universities or schools that offer these aviation programs, can you tell from the beginning of your career to now when you've obtained that master's degree, if that really has shown a difference by getting that? I mean, I know it makes a difference, but as far as your career goes, can you really tell if that is respected or, I guess it's knowledge?
So the question is, how important is the master's degree is that an accurate, how important is the master's degree, and can you tell the difference in your career progression when you attain the master's degree? Anybody want to take that one? So for my sector in the Air Force, it was really important for promotions during that timeline when I was in the promotion track. So the master's degree was very important in that aspect.
Yeah, it's the same thing. To be in the military, back when I did come out, you had to have a master's degree. Now it's kind of been masked until you get to a certain rank beyond 05. You have to have a master's degree. So it is important in the military, especially if you want to advance any further. And to be an officer, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree.
And Brenda, at your company, are there?
Yeah, so for us, which is really, most of our master's degree people are focusing on engineering. So the benefit that brings to us is greater theoretical understanding and then some demonstrated capacity to really identify and resolve some type of complex engineering problem. So there is a level of theoretical competence that is incredibly important, and I think the master's degree adds to that level of credibility.
And L3 Harris, you're getting your degree through L3 Harris right now. There are a lot of opportunities in these industries for the companies to pay for your master's degree. The Air Force paid for my master's degree. Rebecca's getting hers via L3 Harris right now. So there are really a lot of opportunities. Other questions? Great. All right, we've got one in the back. All right, here's one.
So my students had a question that they wanted to ask you. Were there any points in your career where you just wanted to give up being in a more of a male-dominated pathway in what you're doing?
So the question is, was there a time you wanted to give up because it's so male-dominated and as a woman? Has anybody had any experiences like that?
Well, I have the mic, so I'm just going to So my mother was like a pioneer in women in aerospace. I mean, she would go to meetings and often she would drag me along. So they really started the company full time when I was in college. So she would drag me along to meetings and she'd be the only woman in the room with hundreds of men. And so I really got to witness that kind of bravery, of, which might sound a little bit overdramatic, but it was really atypical to have women in the room. So I got to witness that, but it was an interesting, challenging time because, you'd find I still find myself often in rooms with mostly men and me, and I don't think I ever hit a point where I thought, I don't want to do this, but I've had to learn how to work with that and how to be centered within myself to be able to not really pay attention. And fortunately, in our environment, our men are very respectful, so we haven't had a lot of concerns. But yeah, that's my tale.
I have one where it was quite interesting, but it was one of my most recent deployments where the leadership that was identifying who could go said no females. And I was the boss. I was their leader. And they said no females. And I'll never forget that discussion with my husband, who actually took more offense to it than I did. So eventually we got that worked out. It was all about safety and forward deploying, and I would be the only female separated in lodging from my team. It was about safety and the buddy system and the wingman system, and if I'm the only female, then I wouldn't have another wingman in my lodging quarters with me. I would be separated from the rest of my team. But it was interesting that my husband and how he reacted to that discussion. He was very upset and very offended that I was being excluded solely based on the fact that I was a female.
And one of the great things that in their organization, I didn't see that. I was going to say the 99s exist for support systems, for things like this.
We do. I'm used to being the only female usually within my industry, and the same thing in meetings. And it doesn't bother me, but we recognize that there is a difference between male and females within the training environment. And when a female makes a mistake, they still tend to go, you don't belong here. Like, oh, it's just a woman. She's like, the token. And if a guy makes the same mistake, it's like, okay, do it again. Nobody thinks anything of it. So we need to work on training programs with us within flight training. As you get more female instructors, they work with the other females, and they don't have that kind of a problem. And this is where not just the mentorship, but the camaraderie that you get when the women work together. And I think in a lot of schools, they have found that women are going to excel when they work together. They're not being judged. And you hear all the time within airline industries that, oh, she got hired because she's a female. Well, no, she got hired because she's just as good and better than the other pilots. There is no distinction between the quality of work that's being done. That you just have to find your person.
Any other questions? All right, I saw a hand over here.
What are some ways that you've been able to combat and overcome that sexism that you face in the workplace?
So the question is, what are the ways that you overcome the sexism in the workplace?
I would say speak up. If you ever experience that, you have to say something. And it happened to me, again, a long time ago now, and I didn't speak up, and I wish I would have. But I was also, a goal of mine to prove I was just as good and actually better than most of the men that did my job. So I became an instructor. I became an evaluator. I had a family. Like, I can do all of this. My husband's in the military. We can do this together and prove that it's possible. And we're progressing in our career field and advancing into leadership positions. So yeah, I worked hard, and there were some guys that were kind of jerks every once in a while, and you put them in their place, and you speak up when you say something.
Love it. yet, don't worry. All right, I see a question here. Do you need the mic? Okay.
Hi, my name is Brianna and I'm from Milwaukee High School, and my question is, what motivated you to stay in the military long term, and what would you say to young women that are considering the military as a career?
Long term, I guess it's also to, again, kind of back to my point, to show that it is possible and that you can do it. A lot of my family had been in the military, but nobody had stayed in as long as I have, and I wanted to go the full length. I wanted to go the 20, maybe plus years to prove that I can do it, and again, still have that family. Again, the Air Force is, I'm going to pull on the Air Force, that's what I know the easiest, but the military in general is really making it much more family friendly, much more conducive to have a family and children, and to still have that life. You don't have to give that up just because you're in the military. And it does come with the deployments. It's going to come with some time away from your families, and you do have to know that and accept that. But you can work through that, and you have to have a support structure. I have a great family, and my husband's family has helped us through it. The military family in general has also helped us through some of those times. And again, if you ever have any concerns, like I was very fortunate to have really good leadership that I could talk to about my concerns when they were going to deploy me for 6 months when I had just had a 6-month-old, and I was like, I really don't want to do this. Like I have a 6-month-old baby, and at that time again, that was kind of the time frame where you were deployable. It was 6 months postpartum. Now it's a year at least, so it has gotten a lot better. And again, I just voiced my concerns to my leadership that asked me to deploy, and I was like, boss, I want to do the job and I want to go, but these are my concerns. And I ended up not going, and I got to stay home with my baby. So it has gotten so much better in the military. So I wish it was like that when I had joined, but it's so encouraging to see just in the past 2 years how much better it has gotten and how much more conducive it is to a family and to a family.
Do you have anything to add, Cavanaugh?
Whenever I first joined, it was 6 and out. It was going to be my first 6 years. I was going to get my college degree and I was going to get out. But I actually loved my job. And I loved it back then and I still love it today. And she's right, there's a lot of things that have progressed to help females in the military that have made life a little bit easier. I was very calculated in like when I began having children because I wasn't in the right position, or this leader wasn't supportive, and so it was. My children are 18 and 14, so it was long before a lot of these initiatives came along. And fortunately for me, my husband and my children see my passion for what I do, and so that makes them very supportive of me, which has led me to 33 years.
Great, more questions. We're not here in the front.
I doubt that I need a microphone. I teach high school. Francis Wecker, I teach at Tonquah, Oklahoma, Tonquah High School. I have my beautiful students here, and I have Ari. And my question is this: how do we as educators support a mission that gives our students the best opportunities, male or female, but especially our young women, and help them channel into careers often male-dominated? What sorts of support systems can we implement at that level to scaffold them up into the scaffold?
Fantastic question. So the question is, we have a high school teacher. What can at this level, the high school teacher, what can they do to ensure that women and men go into aviation and aerospace in these amazing careers?
So it was actually my physics high school teacher who had a son that was an engineer for NASA, and she took the time one day to tell us the different types of engineering disciplines there were that you could go into, and then pulled me aside after and said, I think you would be a great mechanical engineer. And I went home that day and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be an engineer when I grow up. And I applied to schools and I never wavered. But I think part of my passion is going to schools and showing them what opportunities there are out there. Again, you said you don't know what you don't know. And so we've gone to schools and I've taken mechanics with me. It doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. It doesn't have to be an engineering degree. there are great careers within aerospace that pay amazing money that you can start now. And it's just, I think, first starting with that knowledge of what is out there. So maybe hosting, I think a lot of us like to go and do that, and have us come talk about what is available and what we can do.
No, it's great. We actually have really similar stories. My physics teacher also inspired me and encouraged me to go into engineering. My senior year, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I'm also a first generation college student as well in my family. And so my family didn't know what was out there. They didn't know what was available. And I also excelled in physics, and she said, oh wow, you would be a really great engineering student. Here are some programs in our area that you should apply to. And so helping bridge that gap for students who might not know what is available was how I got into engineering in the first place.
Great question.
This is a general question along that same line. Have anyone ever been in the Civil Air Patrol?
Has anybody been in Civil Air Patrol? Well, I'm about to be the liaison in the Civil Air Patrol here, but I have not actually started that position yet. I'm just in processing. But I did not, my first flight was actually being the Civil Air Patrol back in the day at college, but, all right, we're here. Yes.
I'm Amelia Earhart. I'm a student here with Tulsa Tech's private pilot ground school program. And for those of you who've gone through flight training, I'm sure you know the washout rates for flight schools and programs with flight training are incredibly high, like 75% typically or higher, because of how stressful it is. And I imagine as for women, it has been even more stressful. Do you have any advice for young women who are looking at flight schools right now or are going through that training?
So the question is, there's a really high washout rate at flight schools because of the stress of the added stress of being a woman. So the question is how to mitigate that. Right.
How do we get more women as flight instructors?
Just like what kind of advice you have to women who are going through flight school? Like how can we persevere through not only being one of the only women in flight school, but also just how challenging it is initially? Like how to overcome the challenges.
So it's advice on how to overcome the challenges of flight school and the intensity of flight school.
I'm not quite sure what she's saying.
Just advice on how to overcome the intensity of flight school, like how to make it through.
Oh. How many are in the flight school? How many females are in your flight school right now?
In our grad school, there's 6 out of, I believe, 34.
6.
We only have one instructor, just ground school.
Okay, are you running into problems with the?
No. I was talking about, so like, I'm looking at high school right now, and I've heard that it's incredibly difficult to go through high school in general, but especially as a woman, and I'm wondering, like, what advice would you give to women who are going through high school that just could make it somewhat, just advice to keep in mind, I guess?
Join in the Airlines.
I love that.
Because, well, no, honestly, because one, other than scholarships, we have scholarships available to help because it's a huge financial burden to be flying today. So the scholarships help, but we also have a leadership programs where it's that bonding and camaraderie that sometimes you need to get through your flight training. An example, we've got one girl who's, she's just finished all of her flight training. She's 18 years old. She's going on to university. She's instructing while at university. And she's working with a girl 3 states away who's about to be doing her flight test. And they've connected through the organization. They've created a friendship. And she's helping her as she gets ready for her flight test. So you really need to create your group, your team, to help support yourself. When you run into problems with the instructor, it's like you said, don't let them get away with it. You have to confront any issues you run into head on. And you've got to go to your head and say, look, we have this problem right here. Flying with somebody, you may not get along with them. You may not get along with a lot of people throughout your life. You have to work with it. If it's going to be really horrible, change your flying instructor. You know, that's a little bit harder in a school.
We've got to wrap up in a second. And Sandra's going to make an announcement here in a minute. But I also wanted to give a little bit of advice. There's going to be a couple of airline captains that are going to talk later as well. And I'm becoming an instructor at Delta Airlines. I've been an instructor a long time in the C-17. I mean, in some of the practical advice, take care of yourself, stay healthy, sleep, study hard, find steady friends, and it's old school studying a lot. It's making flashcards, it's reiterating, it's finding partners and talking things out back and forth and literally sitting. I just changed to a new airplane and I have been flying for 18, 19 years and I still paste pictures up and I sit there and I go through buttons and I go through and I speak the words out loud and I still chair fly this long later. And those are just really basic study skills that are a little bit different than the study skills I think that are utilized in high schools and in curriculums now, right? A lot of, teachers will use the Quizlets and stuff like that. We gotta make your own, write them out over and over and find your study partner and ask your parents, ask your neighbor, hey, can you quiz me on these things? And partnering together. But also getting sleep. I didn't realize how valuable sleep was until I was an adult, and I wish I would have known back in high school and college how valuable it is, and staying healthy. But I do need to wrap up, and Sandra is going to make an announcement. So I wanted to thank all of the panelists. I wanted to also thank everybody for asking such great questions. I really love the audience engagement.
Hi, I'm Sandra Shelton. I'm with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. On behalf of Tulsa International Airport and Spirit Aerosystems, Kratos Defense, who presented our panel today, we thank you so much. So there's lots of exciting stuff waiting for you in the hangar. We really want you to enjoy your day. There's a photo booth for my riveters out there and my pilots out there. That photo booth is set up by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Those photos will be found on our Facebook page, Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. So please go take your photos. There's lots. Tulsa Air and Space Museum has set up a pop-up shop. We do have T-shirts for sale, and now the lady is here with the credit card, so get that plastic. And remember, it is a nice holiday gift, because here's why we do this. There's 250 students here today, and where's my industry folks? Raise your hand. My industry folks, you're here mentoring those young students. Now, where's my students? Raise your hand. We want y'all to talk to each other. Absolutely. I also want to congratulate you all on keeping the law today. It is a state law in Oklahoma by Senate Bill 230, passed in 2017, that you commemorate a portion of your day to the contributions of women in aviation and aerospace. So you guys did great today. So there's a lot of you in here, so don't everybody leave at once. Some of you go to the restroom, some of you go to the T-shirt shop, and the rest of you go to the photo booth and everything else. And don't eat your dessert first. Have a great time, everybody.